Hello and welcome to a new tutorial. Today I will be going over how to create a Star Wars Saga Edition game inside of Roll20, as well as some of the nuances of Roll20 that might help get you started running a game for Star Wars Saga Edition. This also has some other features that can carry over to other games that use different character sheets, such as Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder. So let's begin by going to create a new game. Of course, like usual, you just give it a name. Then you would come down where it says choose a character sheet. It might be a little faster if I just start typing Star Wars. And there it is, Star Wars Saga Edition. So we'll select that. This just verifies what we are looking for. This looks like the correct sheet. All right, then I'm going to click Create a Game. Okay, once you have your game created, you can click here to upload a file. You can schedule your games on here if you want by clicking here. If you have any add-ons you paid for, you can click that to add them. But the cool thing about the Saga Edition is that you do not have to have a pro account to create this. It's a free D20 system, so you don't need any special APIs to get special dice. So let's jump in here and see what it looks like. So one of the first things I like to do is get rid of the avatars so you have more space. So to do that, I'm going to go to the top right under settings. And over here, player video avatar size. I'm just going to put names only. I also typically use Discord for all of our chat, so I will go ahead and disable it in here as well. So if I go over here, video and audio chat options, just hit none. All right, and that refreshes it as it's saving this setting. If you've made any purchases, they show up here, as well as any assets that you have uploaded from any other game. If you click on that, it'll show all these different things that you've uploaded. So I'm going to go ahead and go over how I would create a player character and then an NPC on here. So where I went was the tokens. I don't know if that was obvious, but it's the one that looks like pictures. That shows either your library or your premium assets. So as you can tell, I've purchased a lot of stuff over the years. So I will go ahead and just grab this character and drag him over. All right, I think it usually defaults it to like a 1 square when you drag and drop from the library panel. Then I'm going to go over here to the journal, which looks like a newspaper. When I click on it, this is where all your character sheets, notes, and you can even create folders and subfolders to organize things. So for here, I'm going to go ahead and create a new character. Right, here you got the basics. If you're just starting off, one thing I like to do is set it up so that new players can have a week or so to get a little familiar with Roll20 and be able to start editing their own character sheet. One of the ways I do that is by just creating a bunch of editable character sheets that anyone can access, and I just call them available player 01 and just make a couple of them. Then I set in the journal, the player journal for all players, as well as can be edited and controlled by all players. Then I just once I save it, shows up and has a little blue dot indicating that all players can see it and edit it. But as you also notice, it created a folder as soon as I created my first character and just started putting it in there. That's pretty good for organization, so I'm just going to leave it like that. Once you have a character template, like this is what I'm going to use to set up some character sheets for new players to go ahead and go in and edit it. So I will go ahead and click on it again, and I'm going to go to edit. And this is where I tell them that they can change the character sheet from available to their character's name to show any other player that they have claimed this particular character sheet. Another thing that I like is once you have a character sheet set up and you might want to reuse it and just change it slightly, there's this duplicate option over here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and make a couple. And that's kind of a new feature. Whenever I duplicate it, it's putting it inside the character folder. And in previous versions, it didn't used to do that. So I like this improvement. Okay, so cancel. I'm just calling that available too. And I'll just do the same with the others. All right. So let's go ahead and look at the player character sheet. So once you open this up, I'll go and click on available one over. Again, we are in this little journal tab. It's the third icon over. Once you open it up, you just click on it. It opens up this character sheet. It defaults to the bio tab, but you can click on this character sheet tab. And then I would avoid clicking on this. This attributes and abilities is if you want to create special meta buttons or whatnot. But for most people, if you're going to just use what you've got and not digging into any of the advanced features, this will be just fine for you. So on the character sheet, we have a PC, NPC, and vehicles. So I'll go ahead and create a player character first and go over kind of the small differences. So to claim this token, I'm going to go click edit. Right, and I just named it so that it no longer says available and it says Fred the Scout. Here you put your classes in. So this all pretty much works. If you're familiar with the system, you'll know what to put on all this stuff. What I like about this is it updates your reflex, fortitude, will based on your attributes here and calculates your threshold for you. If you're trained in certain skills, just click that and it adds a 5. So I'm going to go ahead and put some stats in here. All right, so I just threw that in there. So one thing, if you add the attributes afterwards, you see that it did not update over here. So there's a couple ways to get to refresh. One way is to uncheck and then check it again, and that will update it. Another way is to increase the miscellaneous modifier. Click away, and then click back to where it was. So there's a couple ways to do it. A lot of times if it's a skill, the easiest way is just click on it on the trained, or this is for if you have the feat for focus, which will add another +5. So there's how that is. If you have a special equipment, like let's say you have climb and you have a special equipment, you would just click on the, as you notice, each of the skills have a clickable button. The cursor changes to a finger. If you click on it, it will go ahead and give you some notes. So you can say, got some climbing gear to give me a +2 or something like that, right? I think climbing harness might be something here. Okay. So also, You can show the formula here too if you kind of have an idea what you're doing. And the cool thing about this is it has everything set up for you in here. But for most people, you're not going to need to mess with the formula. If you're wearing a climbing harness, you can put it inside the miscellaneous, like if it gives you a +2, so I'll do that. This is if you want to get a little more into the weeds, and this kind of stuff comes in handy more for the NPCs. But it has like the variable names inside these, you know, like at climb miscellaneous. But we can go into some of this a little later, but for now it's not that important, so I'll just go ahead and hide that. But that's what that is there. That's how it's calculating all these numbers here. That's the actual in the weeds programming part. I'll go ahead and this is like when you're a scout at first level, you get a bonus to some of your scores like reflex, fortitude, or will. I don't have the book open right now, but I'm just kind of showing you how this system works. If you have any armor, if you click the show button, you can check this if you're wearing it. If the armor gives you a reflex bonus defense, you would add that here. Fortitude, your max dex bonus. If your speed is reduced right here, you put your new speed here. You also have your current speed, which defaults to 6. You can change what size your character is. Most player characters can either be medium, small, or large, depending on what their species is. And then for attacks, I believe it's 3d6, but that's 3d6 dice, basically. It's not strength-based. Blasters are range-based, so choose dex. All right, and then if you have any attack notes, you can put them in here. But so we gave it a blaster. It's got a once you have a weapon set up, you can click on this dice button to roll it. If you have any modifiers, such as if your blaster has an auto fire setting, you can do your -5 here in your roll, and that will subtract 5 for shooting auto fire. When I hit submit, you notice nothing happened, but up here it's indicating that there's something going on. So this is our chat window up here. So when you're inside of Roll20, you need to sometimes be aware of what screen you're on inside this tab. So currently we are on the character sheet tab, which is also the journal. And anything such as dice rolls will appear in the chat. So I'm going to click on that. And there is our weapon right here. And if you roll over it, it shows you the dice that was rolled. So it has your BAB, your modifier for your dex, any miscellaneous, your armor check penalty. All that stuff's already calculated in there. And it looks like I rolled an 11 plus 1. And then at the very end, it's subtracting 5 because of the auto fire. So that's how that works. You can see the 3d6 individual dice rolls. First dice is a 2, 4, and a 5. So that's pretty much what you have here. If your character is a Jedi, if you scroll down to the bottom, you have a little force area. You can click that, and it adds some more force related techniques, secrets, regimens. You can also put your force powers in here, and this basically rolls the use the force skill for any of your powers. All right. And if you're not a force user and you are a droid, I'm going to go ahead and hide that. You can click on the show, and it added this Droid Systems little area that you can add the individual droid systems that your character has. Right, then if you have any Starship Maneuvers, if you took talents that give you that, you can click on that to show them. So, and then it kind of like use the Force. You can roll right here to do the maneuver specifically. I click on that, it just does a basic pilot check, but it's, if you have any maneuvers put in here, it might be easier to, say, I'm going to do this particular maneuver and just click here versus scrolling up and finding the pilot. All right, so that's pretty much the player character sheet. One more thing I'd like to show you is how to tie a character sheet to your token. So if I go to edit, and then I'm clicking on this little art thing, because I've already uploaded stuff. If you haven't uploaded any images and you don't have any assets, even under premium assets, if you have the free subscription, which costs nothing, you have access to these free assets here that you can just drag and drop as well. So you can kind of see what these are. If I want to have like a little skeleton looking character, it's not very Star Warsy unless you're doing a Death Troopers book or Red Dawn type campaign or adventure. But so I can drag it like that. If I want a image to appear in my bio, the best way to do that is to drag and drop an image from your computer or from your assets and drag it into this top window. Once it's there, you can right click and say copy image. I click in here and then I will right click and then hit paste. And that's how you can get an image to appear in your bio. One thing we like to do is we use Hero Forge to create a lot of our characters. This is one of the tokens that you can make using Hero Forge if you pay for a subscription to be able to save tokens from the 3D assets that you create. So I typically have like a portrait view I drag in there, and that way, here's what you would see if I'm going to go back over to the top right and to the journal. But whatever you have in here for your avatar is what shows up on the character sheet, so you can kind of visually see which character's what. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit save. All right, so I got like an image in there. Let's just say that's what he looks like without his mask on. He's got like a skeleton face. Oh, I'm going to close that. All right, now to assign this token, which I just dragged and dropped onto, I'm going to call this area the stage. If you select on it, you notice a few things show up. So we're going to focus on this little gear here. This gear is the settings for the token. So when I click on that, it opens up this window. What I want to do is assign it to Fred the Scout character sheet that I have over my journal. So I'm going to make sure the token is selected. You can see it has this little bounding box around it. So I'm going to click on the generic token. I'm going to select an actual character sheet. When it does that, it lets you put Fred the Scout. You can use that as a nameplate, and that will show up once I hit save. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Right. And once I've done that, I've got this token tied to his character sheet. And one of the best benefits of doing that is you can hold down the shift button and double click on the token anywhere in the map, and it pulls up your character sheet to the bio page. Now another thing you can do if you want to jump to the character sheet is we'll go ahead and close this. If you hold the Alt key down and double click on it, it pops open to the character sheet. So I know if you have limited space, you got a smaller monitor, maybe you're using a laptop, this definitely comes in handy if you want to close the window so you can look at the map and move things around. Now, another thing I like to do, I'm going to go ahead and Alt double click. And see, I'm running a little bit out of space here. But let's go ahead and put some hit points in here. And then I have a reflex total of 13 and flat-footed 12. So here's kind of what we do for our game. I'm going to go click on the settings of Fred the token. So I just type it in manually, and whenever we level up or get armor put on, we can adjust it by going back to the settings of the token. So for now, I'm just going to tie this to the reflex total and then the flat-footed value. Right, and then I will tie this to the character sheet's hit points by clicking on this attribute where it says none. I see it right here. HP is the hit points, and that will show your total here. That's reading it from a character sheet here. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'm on the token, and a stormtrooper shoots me, and he does, let's say, 7 damage. I can click on this red circle for his health. I can hit the minus key, so this is really great. So if you don't like math, you can actually hit -7 and it will update it. So I'm going to do that. And then hit the return key or the enter key, and it updates it. And it also updated it on your character sheet. So that's one of the cool things about tying your token to a character sheet, because that way you don't have to have this open just to see what your damage is, you know. And likewise, if a character healed you, right now you're first level. So let's say they give you a +1. I'm going to type in +1, hit the enter key, and it updates it. So that's a pretty neat feature. I love this. So I'm going to go through and show you how I set up an NPC now. One of the things I do is try to keep my NPCs separate from my character. So I'm going to, inside the journal, which is the newspaper icon, I'm going to click on the plus symbol, and I want to add a folder. I'm going to call it NPCs. All right, and this is where I will add my NPC characters. So what you can do, if you're the GM of the game, you can right click, add character. Let's just make this a stormtrooper. And I know I've uploaded some from previous games. I did the FFG games. I could grab one of those images easily by clicking on the photo in the upper right over on this panel to the right. So I start typing it in, and then it shows all the stormtroopers I've uploaded. So I'm gonna, these are actual miniatures I took from the Star Wars miniature line. So I'm gonna drag one on the map. Then I'm going to use a headshot. This is optional. You can use the same token for your avatar as your miniature, but since I have both, I'm using both. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and save this. So this is the blank character sheet. For an NPC, I'm gonna go over here, click on the character sheet, and then click to NPC. NPC greatly reduces the number of skills you have to mess with, so you don't have to scroll as much. It does your reflex total and fortitude and will saves using these formulas that I showed earlier inside of the skills. So this is really great, because if you actually manually type in a number like that, and you're like, oh darn, for some reason, like, you have a number in here and you're like, oh, I don't know what the new number is, I want to add this new armor to it, or something changes and it just has 11, I don't know what his number should be. You can go ahead and delete that, and then it puts the formula right back. So it's really great. So if you ever delete something in here and you forget what the formula is, you just delete everything and it will re-put the formula back in. Sometimes you have to close a character sheet and open it again if the formula doesn't show up, but that's usually what you do. So on here, you can actually do a plus and then the number. So like certain classes get you +1 or 2 reflex for your class level. So you would just do a +2 here and do it on the flat-footed as well. And flat-footed doesn't always update right away for some reason. I think it's a bug, but if I close this and then I open it again, it updates. So that's just a trick I've run into while using this system. Right, attacks are also, a lot of stuff on the NPCs is very formulaic, but it's not that difficult. In fact, let's go ahead and do a droid. I keep talking about droids because droids are a little different when it comes to your defenses. They use their strength because they do not have a con modifier. All right, so I'm just creating a random battle droid. I'm not going to use the actual stats, but just giving demonstration purposes. So I'm going back to my little image library, and I've already uploaded a couple different tokens. All right, that'll work. So hit save and go to the character sheet. Remember to click on NPC. And now let's see, I have a droid. He has no con because his con's supposed to be 0. And so with the 0 con, your threshold is going to be way off. So let's go ahead and make him like 11 strength, 11 dex. I think these are, I think that's more accurate. Yeah, something like that. So, I mean, like I said, I'm not going for accuracy on the character sheet. I don't have their character sheet open in front of me. But I'm just basically showing you how this works. So you got your strength, dex, con, and they have the abbreviations right here. So if you go into your Fortitude, the CON stands for Constitution. So if I go ahead and change that, if I go and change the con to strength, it updates. And as you can see, it updated in the threshold as well. Again, you don't have to use these like I showed. You can just go ahead and manually overwrite it to what the character sheet shows. And if you ever want to go back again to the formulas, you just delete what you wrote and it automatically puts the formulas in there. The attacks are also a little different from the player character sheet. You can give it a name. Then in here, again, you can use the formula or you can just delete everything and put what the character sheet shows. So as you can see, it says strength. I'm just going to change strength to dex or DEX. Yep. Right. And so I think they're the same, but if I went ahead and made the dex 1 higher, yeah, character level actually matters. I think they're non-heroic. A 3 for B1, but like I said, don't quote me. Under species, it's a 4th degree droid. Unless he has a feat, he doesn't get any bonuses to damage. So I manually type in 0 there. All right, it might be an 8, but as you can see, once I edited one of these fields, it forced this to update. That way we know it has an auto fire option. Again, this is all optional. So if I go to the chat, I want to see how good this droid can shoot. I'm not doing auto fire this time, which is good because I rolled a 1 multiple times. All right, and then it has your notes here if you have any notes. So those are optional, just as a reminder. I'll go ahead and tie a character sheet to a token. Right? All right, so I just dragged a token on here. Then I click on the token, click on the settings. Okay, it's got a reflex of 12, and a flat-footed of 10. I usually don't set this attribute for NPCs because that way I can copy multiple instances of them and it doesn't mess up the character sheet. So I manually just type in their hit points here. All right, then gonna hit save. Then while this is selected, I'm going to edit and selecting that use the selected token. Okay, and now I can drag and drop as many copies as I want onto the map. And since their hit points are not tied to the character sheet, I can manually put them on here when they get shot. And they can all have different numbers. So that's the reason I do that. I don't like making excessive character sheets if I don't have to. Okay, and that pretty much sums up doing NPCs and player characters. And then if you're used to the Star Wars Saga Edition, there's also a vehicle character sheet. Now, under these crew assignments and skills, is treating it more like an NPC than players, because you got the skilled, unskilled, the different levels of skills for an NPC. The character sheets, like NPC and PC, they all adjust depending on what size your character is. So Gargantuan is what it defaults to, but a lot of the starships start off at Colossal, if this is a starship, but this could also be a speeder or a walker or any other type of vehicle. So, but you just fill this out. Do the same thing for assigning a character sheet. You just drag your token on the screen. I'm gonna stop messing with the Battle Droid one, but I would create a new character sheet for this. I'm gonna go back to the journal. A lot of times I'll do a new folder for them, for vehicles. I'll create a character sheet inside. Rather than spell things incorrectly, I'm just gonna call it a CIS ship. All right, and fill out some stats on the vehicle. I don't know what the exact stats are. I don't have them in front of me. That's probably way too high. Yeah, I don't know offhand. But yeah, so it's pretty similar. Then I would go to the character sheet. Call it the CIS ship. You know, I use the blue bar a lot for shields, so I'm gonna go ahead and add shields in there and add the damage reduction. One thing that they have recently added is this tooltip. And what I like about this tooltip is I can add some notes on the ship. And since the ships typically are larger, they take up more than one square, I'll put stuff like the damage reduction and the threshold. All right, now I know it's better threshold than that, but this is just to demonstrate how to do this. The reflex and flat-footed, I give some armor. And I'll hit save. Oh, if I click the shell, watch this. I hit save. Now when I roll over it, it goes ahead and gives me this information. So it comes in handy. Now I can edit this character sheet and make sure you select the token. Then you select a token. There we go. All right, so there's kind of some character sheets set up. All right, Next, I kind of like to show what I've already built and show you some things that I've done with some actual NPC stats.